So as you have seen in the previous video, there are many things we can do with this inspector to change the appearance in our blocks projects. But of course, the main power comes with classes. When you want to customize something beyond looking the basic blocks or bootstrap design, you need to know how to use classes. So let's add some text here. And using this text brick, I will show you what you can do with these classes. But before, let me show you what you would usually do using the inspector. You can select this text brick and change the font, for example. Let's make it black or very bold. You can change the alignment. You can change the size of this brick. So let's maybe make it 4.9. So let's type 9 here. And in addition to that, of course, we can change color, some padding, margin, but the appearance wise, that's actually all we can do here. And as you can see, Blocks kind of creates the custom class for us. And if you delete this class, you can reset most of the changes we have applied. But when you want to make more customization to this element, you need to select it and type your own class name. You can type whatever you want, and after you do, you can edit this class to add much more customization to this element. So let's select it, and right now I will click on this new class we created, and you can see class editor is now opened. And of course, you can use this to switch between inspector and class editor. So, and by default, most of these panes will be, I think all of them will be closed like that. And you can see at once all of the categories you can change for this element. And some of these categories will be useful to some elements, others will be useful to another ones. So metrics for sizing, margin and padding will be useful for many things actually. Border will be useful for buttons. Typography will be useful most of all, of course, for text. So let's change the font to the bold one we used before. And as you can see, there are many more options to choose from when it comes to editing the text of this class. Of course, we can do all of the same basic things as well. For example, changing the color. So let's set it to something like that. And in addition to that, we have some weight options, decoration. So if you want something like that, you can do that here as well. And there are many, many more options to choose from. In addition to that, we have background, for example, which is also possible to apply to pretty much any element, including text. If you set the background color here, we can actually go back to margin and padding to create some kind of box, which will probably be more useful for buttons or cards, but we can still test it here. We can add maybe more padding on top and bottom like that by unlinking all of the four sides. And in addition to that, we can maybe add some borders. So if we click on borders and type, let's say 10, we might enable some solid borders, for example. And we can change the color to something different. And again, it will be very useful for buttons, but we can set the radius here as well, radius corner, to make them a little bit rounded. We can set the separate corner radius for some of the corners, for example, left, bottom, like that. And yeah, in addition to that, well, I think that actually decoration, I will disable that, doesn't look very good. And we can change pretty much everything about this element. When it comes to gradients, it will look very good on block backgrounds. For example, as you can see, I used blue to black on my Blocks library website, and we can change something here as well. Obviously, again, not the best representation of this feature, but you can see how powerful it is. And you can use this to cards, divs, columns, rows, blocks, buttons, and even like in this case, this just usual text. There is some angling here as well. You can change the radius or angle radius of this gradient and a few other options. After that, we have positioning, and this is very powerful as well. We will cover that in detail later. Text shadow, we'll add the shadow to the text inside our box here. We can use these plus minus buttons to change how far and how blurry it is. We can use the sliders here to do that as well, if you want an easier way to do this. You can change the opacity for the shadow as well. And this is for the text shadow. We can also add shadow to the box. And by adding shadow to the box, it will be appearing below or behind our box. So let's increase the distance, obviously decrease the opacity because if it is too dark in my opinion. Let's change the angle a little bit. On this side, probably 45 or 50 degrees will be perfect. In addition to that, we have filters, background filters and regal filters. This will be very useful for images, obviously. You can add some contrast, some blurry effect, and so on, grayscale effect maybe. Again, this is perfect for images. Same goes for the backdrop filters. This one will be cool if you have some kind of cards or images again. For this particular instance, you don't really see any difference here. And then we have SVG, Flex, and Grid. And Flex is obviously one of the popular features you will use. To make sure Flex is working, you need to go to positioning and change the display settings. So let's change it to Flex. And now we can go to Flex section and we can change how and where the element is placed in our container. And obviously this is only one element here, so we don't really see a lot of things happening, but we can use these many elements in Blocs websites. So these are just some of the things you can do, and we only use text brick to showcase it. But of course, if you use other elements, many more things are possible. And if you take a look at the class manager here, these are all custom classes I'm using for this project. And this is the minimalist library project, so a lot of custom classes here. So to open this class, let's move our sidebar to the left and click on this button here, click edit class. And now inside this custom class, we can edit it again to adjust how it looks. Let's actually minimize this a little bit because it of course occupies a lot of space right now. So let's double click on this panel and see what else we have on our website here. So actually for this particular case, I will open the inspector, and as you can see, we have the fastest class here. It has some border to the left, and I think it has some gradient background giving this cool effect. And if we click on other word, I think it will be the same, but it's different color here. And button has a class here, and I think most of the elements I'm using on this page have some kind of classes. This row has a class. Actually, let's close the class editor so we can see the inspector. So this element has a class full width. This subtitle has two classes applied. This title has a class bold applied. And this pricing or this button, pretty much every time I want to have something custom and something unique, I will be using classes. Here we have 3 classes applied. So in addition to creating our own classes, of course, Blocs comes in these many baked-in classes, and these are bootstrap classes. To access some of them, we can actually open Class Manager, and if you click on plus icon here, we have this subclass library, which allows us to add some of the most popular classes used in our project for example, special navigation, mobile navigation backgrounds, for different frames for images, for carousel, arrows, and stuff like that. One of the most popular ones will probably be scroll to top button, and I do think I already have it here in our project here, so it won't be allowing me to add it again. But as you can see, I have a lot of classes here already. And if you want to add even more classes, all you need to do is go to Google and search for Bootstrap classes. And you can actually specify the Bootstrap 5 classes, because if you're using Bootstrap 5, you want to have Bootstrap 5 classes first. And there are a bunch of websites, there's many classes you can use in your project.